What's up guys, this video is going to show you how to change out an oil pressure sensor on a 6.4 liter Hemi. This 2015 Grand Cherokee SRT was throwing a P0520 code. If you want to watch how to do this, this is the video for you. '15 Grand Cherokee SRT oil pressure sensor. Code was going off, P0520 I think it was. Ordered a new one. Also had to get one of these oil pressure sensor sockets. It's a 1 1/16 inch. However, it wasn't made that great, so I had to do a little bit of grinding on the inside of it with just a little mini belt sander just to make it so it would actually fit onto there. It was just a little bit out of tolerance. Once you've got those two things, took a bungee cord to move this radiator hose kind of back and away. Had to put a 3/8 inch ratchet on here, pull on the tensioner, release the serpentine belt, pulled it off the alternator, and then it's hiding right down here. That's it right there. You can see the wiring harness. Pop off the wiring harness, and then we'll have to get the socket in there, take out the old sensor, put the new one in. It's a relatively simple procedure. It's just kind of getting stuff out of your way and having the right tools available to do the job. So I've got my hand down in there, and you can also see through this side, right behind that covered wiring, that brass piece hiding right down there behind this wiring is the base of the sensor going into the engine block right there, about middle of the screen, which is that piece right there. Got my hand in here on the wiring harness, and I was able to just pull mine and it popped free. Before I installed this new one fully into the car, clipped it into the wiring harness to make sure that it fit exactly, and it does. So now we know when we install this into the engine block that this will actually reconnect with the wiring harness. See where my arm is? My hand is right here on the side of the alternator. I had to move the little harness out of the way. And then you can see right down there, you guys can see right down there, right here, the socket is going on to the sensor. So that's right where it's going to connect into, and I'm accessing that right here through the front right side of the alternator, just kind of hiding in this little spot. And so down here I've got an extension on my ratchet head, and I'm reached through, and as you guys could see before, we are turning off the old sensor. That. And I'm doing that all right from right here. Whoever installed this one didn't really make it all that tight, so it's been pretty easy on the way out. We're nearly out because I could feel the tension coming off the ratchet. Yeah, it's just barely in there now as I'm moving the ratchet back and forth. I'll pop off the socket and get the rest of it out by hand. Okay, there it is. Saw that right here, wiggling out. Pulling it out right there. Okay, so it looks to me like this thing has been on there for a mighty good amount of time, probably the original one. So I'm glad that we pulled this thing off. Made in Mexico. I wonder if this is what Chrysler originally used, or if this was already replaced once before. I don't know. And now we're just going to simply reverse the exact process we just did. Put that back in the block, get it threaded by hand, then get the ratchet over the socket, tighten it up. Once we do that, we can reattach the harness, and that's it. Job is complete. Make sure that there's nothing here blocking the back side of the sensor. It's clean and clear. Good to go. I'm gonna reach through around these radiator hoses here to the right of the alternator, watching out for the harness, which is right here, kind of keeping it out of the way. And I'm gonna feed it back to the block, and you get this nice little window to look through it right here above the top of the alternator and below this plastic bracket right here. Okay, so we're looking right down there And you can see I'm starting to get it hand threaded in. I'm gonna cut the camera here so I can do this with 2 hands, and I'll be right back. There's also enough space to get your hand right up here in this little area and use your left fingers to kind of guide that brass piece of the base of the sensor. So I'm using my left hand to help guide it in and get it nice and square so I can thread it in. And what I'm talking about is right in here, I had my hand passed in this area and I was using my left middle finger to kind of help guide and straighten it out. But you can see now, and now I'm spinning it clockwise. Got it in a couple threads so I know I'm not cross threading. And now I can get my socket on there and finish the job. Like that. See that? The socket is now fitting over the top of the sensor. And I just gotta get it on the right orientation. There we go. And now you can see we are turning the sensor in. I was just doing that by hand. Now I'll complete the rest of it with the ratchet. Like that. Steady as she goes. And we are tightening it back in. And you can see that we're not cross-threading, and the sensors also come preloaded with that red thread sealant already on there, so you don't have to worry about putting any sort of thread sealant. And as far as tightening goes, not looking to go ultra tight, just nice and firm, but not breaking off the sensor, anything like that. Okay, that feels about right. So that's pretty much it, guys. Reconnect the wiring harness right now, start the car, take it for a spin. If the codes don't clear, you have to pop your battery off, which is located underneath the passenger side seat. So bring the seat up, pull that little tray up, disconnect your negative for about 10 minutes, clear the code, and then this should have solved that problem. So got my arm down there. Let's go ahead and just snap this harness in. Just trying to find where it is. There it is, clicked on. That's what you want to make sure, because if you don't click that harness on and it feels like it's pretty tight, and it will, but if you can pull it back off with a little bit of pressure, if that harness winds up moving out on its own, it's not going to be contacting, and then that can also lead to you throwing a code if that harness is not actually contacted. So you just got to mess with it a little bit like I did, and you could hear it. Once it finally did, it snapped on, and that's it. So this job is now complete. We'll put the radiator hose back to where it needs to be, and that pretty much seals it up, guys. So 3/8 ratchet will just snap right into the front of this tensioner like that, just with the cog that's already on there, and then you're gonna push clockwise, and you can see a pretty good amount of force you're gonna need. Careful, don't hit your AC lines. You can move your tensioner, and then you can release and access your belt. And that's the way that your pulley is going to go. It's going to go over the tensioner, it's going to go over this tensioner pulley, down underneath that larger pulley, underneath this idler, and around the alternator there. And you can see I didn't get the belt all the way on, but once I start it, it'll guide back into course. So that is it. Final thing, let's test it out. Okay, and it pulled our belt right back into place like we thought. Let's check for leaks. See right there. Looks to me like we're not leaking. You can see the orange threads from where it's threaded in the block. Looks good from here. Let's go check for the code. Okay, so we still have this check engine light showing, right? And like I said, right behind the passenger seat, you've got this little storage hatch. You get your battery right here. This little 10mm nut right here, loosened it up. Battery is disconnected now. Just let this sit for about 10 or 15 minutes. Make sure you put the cable to the side so it doesn't reach back and reconnect the battery. which would counteract everything you're trying to do. So we'll check back in about 10 minutes and we'll take it for a ride. Okay, just reconnecting the battery and we can go for a test drive. Nice and snug. You don't want that ever to pop off. Okay, let's do it. Okay, you can see that the code is clear. So we'll just make sure we drive around for a little bit and ensure that doesn't come back. That code should not come back, of course, but if that new sensor is somehow faulty or if the wiring harness is damaged and it wasn't the sensor, that would be the only reason I'd presume it would come back. Before I did this job, I double checked by pulling the battery cable off, clearing the code, because I was checking here on the active code diagnostic and it was saying there was no code even though it was still showing the check engine light. So I thought maybe it would be clearing, maybe it had gone away, but it didn't. So after about 50 miles of driving, the code came back after I had pulled the battery before doing the sensor. So now that we've done the new sensor, we've cleared the code, I'm gonna drive around again, and we get about 50 miles on it and it doesn't pop back up, we'll know that the new sensor is good, the harness is good, and we are done with this job. So far so good. You can also see oil pressure is reading right there, so we know the sensor is definitely reading. All right guys, and in the end, the problem was solved. The car was running great and we fixed it. Appreciate you guys watching. Be sure to drop a comment and let me know if this video is helpful to you. We'll catch you on the next one. Wait, I gotta push the button. Push the button, babe.